Hello everyone, my name is Davik and thank you so much for tuning into the video. The quarantine beard is still here, probably just for one more video, but anyway, in this video I wanted to talk about the top 3 features that I want to see introduced into Siri during WWDC. And to give you a little bit of context, what is WWDC? WWDC is Apple's software conference that they hold every year where they introduce the next version of iOS, macOS, and now iPadOS. And it's super exciting. They introduce a bunch of new features and stuff, so definitely, if you've never checked it out, I would definitely recommend it. But regardless, these are just 3 features that I want to see introduced to Siri because I think they're pretty long overdue and it's required for Apple's next generation offering in its voice assistant. And so, with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video and let it roll. So before I actually get into it, I just want to address that I understand Apple's position on privacy and definitely gives them an advantage compared to other voice assistants because they're the only ones who's taking that big of a hard line. But a lot of these features that I talk about, I think do have privacy incorporated into it. And I do mention how it can still have that privacy aspect into it while, still offering that new functionality. And so yeah, I just wanted to give that preface. Also, I wanted to add that, of course, it's based on my intuitive uses of Apple devices. I don't have the business data to support any of these claims, but at the same time, of course, I do think it is worthwhile for Apple to implement, especially when you look at the competition. And so yeah, with that said, here are the top 3 features that I'm looking for. So the first feature that I want to see is an improvement on the voice platform itself. And I think with that, there's 3 major things that inside that itself that I think Apple can really improve on. I'm going to give you some demos to show what I'm talking about. One of these major improvements to the voice platform is them being able to take multiple commands in one dialogue. And that's something right now, we even see that in Alexa and Google Assistant, so it makes it even more surprising that Siri doesn't have it. And I think it really comes down to Apple having to, reinvest that money or those resources into making the NLP algorithm to, further categorize keywords such as and, or, etc., so they can figure out where those multiple voice commands come. And of course, it's a lot more work than that, but essentially I'm saying because the competition has that, it'd be really nice to see that both in Apple devices as well. And to give you a demo of what I'm talking about, alright, so let's do the very simple multiple commands demo. So I'm going to ask both Google Assistant and Siri 2 commands in one dialogue. So, okay Google, what is the weather today and what is the time right now?
In Calgary tonight, it's predicted to be 13 degrees Celsius and cloudy. Right now, it's 16 degrees and cloudy. 8:30 p.m.
So Google handled it perfectly, and let's ask her the exact same question now. What is the weather today and what is the time right now?
Okay, here's how the weather's looking.
So as we can see, Siri doesn't really know how to handle both commands, and that's sort of the difference right now between Google Assistant and Siri. That's why I briefly mentioned that when Apple invests more money into NLP classification methods, hopefully that we can see this type of functionality being added, and these words like keywords like and, or, also being classified. So yeah, the second part in improving the platform is having Siri provide better answers. And I'm going to show you a demo of, what happens when I ask Siri about the price of an iPhone 11. Okay, so let's see what happens when I ask Google Assistant what the price of an iPhone 11 is. So, okay Google, what is the price of an iPhone 11?
According to 9 to 5 Mac, the iPhone 11 will retail for $699.
So, as you can see, Google gave me the right answer. But let's ask Siri the exact same question. What is the price of an iPhone 11?
Apple.com can tell you all about iPhone 11.
So it's pretty funny how Google is able to provide me that answer, but Apple just tells me to go on their website. But yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. So giving better answers is definitely something that Apple has to work on. And by making some partnerships with different search providers, that can hopefully help in doing that. The third part, I think, is understanding context better. And I'm going to give you another example of this because, it's always easier to show in examples. So in this video, we're going to talk about how the different contextual answers work, and how Google Assistant better understands context in Siri. So let's ask Google Assistant a very simple question. Okay, Google, what is the weather in Montreal?
It's currently 17 degrees Celsius and mostly cloudy there. The forecast tonight is 17 degrees and mostly cloudy.
So Google answers that. And how far is it from me?
You are 3,510 kilometers away from Montreal.
So Google understands the context that I was talking about Montreal because I just asked for the weather. If I ask Siri the exact same question, what is the weather in Montreal?
Here's the forecast for Montreal for today.
How far is it from me?
I'm sorry, I don't have any places to show.
So Siri doesn't know how to answer the question because it doesn't understand that context. And I think that's one thing that Apple should look into baking into Siri. So in the future, a voice assistant becomes less cumbersome for the individual, and it'll understand context, making it more of a natural conversation. Now, to be fair, Apple's improving a lot on this, but at the same time, it's nowhere near where the competition is going to. And if Apple really wants to make a competitive offering, this is definitely something they're going to have to work on. So now that I've talked about what I want to see from the voice platform point of view, I'm going to talk about another feature that I really want to see in Siri, which is Siri Suggestions, or something similar to what Google Assistant has right now. And then of course, I know it seems like I'm just taking Google Assistant features and putting them to Siri, but at the end of the day, these are very nice, intuitive features that I think will really help expand Siri's capabilities and expand the user base that uses Siri. And definitely, since the competition has it, it's definitely something Apple should be aware of. And essentially, what Google Assistant suggestions are those little bubbles you see at the bottom of Google Assistant, which give you certain commands that you can ask the assistant. So even right now, a lot of customers don't know what they can do with Siri, and that's one of the really nice things with Google Suggestions, that it gives the user something more to do, or it tells the user that yes, you can do this as well. And I think that's really nice for Siri to have too, because as a user, now I know that yes, I can also do this command using a voice platform, not necessarily just my fingers, tapping on a screen. And so this is definitely really helpful in making voice a de facto thing in the future, especially when we get to a point where both are sort of at an equal footing. I think this will really help Apple improve Siri and at the end of the day grow a bigger user base in Siri, and it's definitely something I want to see in WWDC. It doesn't seem like that big an addition. And of course, I understand Google Assistant is based on a search engine, but even then, Apple can make those partnerships because they do have the resources and capital to make those partnerships with other search providers. And definitely, that's something they should look into introducing in the future, or else Google's always going to hold that competitive advantage over them. Now, the third thing I want to talk about is having Spotlight Search give more useful information when you are searching something up. And, Spotlight Search is a one-stop shop where you can search for anything. If you want to do calculations, get information on a certain political figure, if you want to get information on a location, it's supposed to be a one-stop shop that you can check both your iPhone and the web and wherever to get that information. You don't necessarily have to do it in separate tasks. But it's really baffling to me that small things like, searching mountains doesn't yield photo results. In fact, what's really interesting is that, I use Google Photos as well. And Photos doesn't return the query with those mountain pictures, but Google Photos does. And what's even more surprising is, of course, you can chalk that down to privacy, but if I go into the Photos app, I will see the picture of the mountains if I search mountains in the search bar. And so it's stuff like that where they have to add these different, small but very useful features to Spotlight Search to better further it. And it's really baffling to me that the competitor has that offering in their search right now, but Apple hasn't done that. And it's definitely something they have to add for the future. Small things like that. Of course, this is a small example, but this is an example of what I'm trying to talk about. So I know I said I was going to only talk about 3, but actually I want to throw in one more. So a fourth one, and that is better cross-ecosystem integration with Siri. And whether that be in Spotlight Search or the voice interface, I think there's a lot of different cross-ecosystem functionality that they can add while still keeping privacy in mind. And the reason I sort of separated the other 3 and this fourth one is because this is probably the hardest for Apple to implement with that privacy in mind, but I still think there are ways that they can do that. But that's sort of why I kept that separation. But anyway, talking about the fourth one, so even with the cross-system integration, I'm going to break it down into two different parts. First, talking about what they can do to have that integration for the voice interface, and second, what they could do to have the integration with Spotlight Search. So, talking about the voice interface, I think there's a lot of different cross-ecosystem stuff they can add. And I'm just basing this off of the information that they have right now, even for each device. So the privacy argument, I'm not sure how much it falls into this because, for example, one of the ecosystem commands that I want to see with Siri is perhaps for her to let me know, when one of my devices is gonna run out of battery. As an owner of an iPad and an iPhone, I want to know when my iPad is gonna die beforehand, before I reach to use it and then figure out that's only at 5%. I want to have that notification or something like that come to my iPhone so I know I can go get it to charge. So something along the lines of, hey Siri, can you let me know when my iPad is about to die, can go a long way. And I think that's definitely of course, I'm not saying that's the only thing they can do or that they should do it, but that's the type of stuff they should start exploring, that how can you add that ecosystem features to the voice palette that Siri has right now. And of course, even with this, when I'm talking about the privacy concern not necessarily being, as relevant in this conversation, even right now with Find My iPhone, I can get the battery percentages for my various Apple devices. And so if I can get that information anyway and synced to my iCloud, why can't that be synced to my Siri? Especially if it's already claimed that my iCloud is impenetrable, even from Apple's point of view. That should mean that I can sync that data with iCloud and not necessarily having to tread new ground in privacy. Of course, there's a lot of steps into it, but that's sort of my mentality when it comes to that type of stuff. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is Siri Spotlight Search. And so sort of similar, if you're syncing iCloud data with all your devices anyway, I think Spotlight Search should have relevant suggestions sent to each of your devices. So for example, on my iPhone, if it says, call mom, I want to see that as a Siri Spotlight suggestion on my iPad as well. Especially with that cross-ecosystem integration, that's definitely something that could be there. And so that's definitely another way I think it could really help if we see some integration like that with the iPhone as well, with the iPhone, iPad, Mac OS, wherever, with Spotlight Search, wherever it is. And yeah, I think those are four great features we can think about for Siri, and I really hope Apple introduces some really nice ones at WWDC, because I think Siri's definitely been due for a good refresh for a while, and definitely they just hired Google's head of AI as well. So definitely there should be some exciting stuff on the horizon with that hire, and definitely I'm super excited to see what happens at WWDC. Apple's very poised to make a good splash into the industry, especially with their stance on privacy. But I think that these key features are just going to help it go one step forward, especially in making sure that the competition's feature set isn't as appealing as privacy as well as the feature set that Apple has. Because of course, Google and Amazon, because they're not taking such a hard line on privacy, can probably iterate faster because that data is more available to them. But by introducing these new features into Siri, at least Apple can still keep their users not feeling too separated from those other platforms, and at the same time feeling like, yes, my privacy is respected. And I think having all those different things is really important in Apple making competitive product, because I definitely think Siri is going to be one of those key things in the Apple ecosystem. It already is, but especially going forward, that keeps the ecosystem even more in check and even more appealing to so many different people. So definitely it'll be very interesting to see, and I hope Apple introduces some of these features at least in WWDC. Really excited to see what else they have in store. But anyway, thank you so much guys for tuning into the video. Just pretty quick video on some of the stuff I was looking forward to, and I have some more videos coming out into the future. Definitely looking forward to those as well. And yeah, stay tuned. If you want, you should check out my SpaceX launch one. I talk about why I'm so excited about the SpaceX launch that just happened. That's the video that's previous to this one. So, but otherwise, of course, there's more content coming down the pipeline. And yeah, see you then. Peace.